doing a little research, and I thought it was really neat to find out that it was Kidizen.
Yes.
And Kidizen was for the first 2 years, and then you pivoted to now Kidizen. So I think it'd be kind of fun to actually go through, what you guys went through. But before we talk about that, I think it's kind of sometimes fun to hear what you were like when you were a child. Starting way back, as in your title, it does say kid. So you're always a kid, which I think is really cool and unique. What I mean by that is their titles. So for instance, I'm going to have each of you introduce yourself first, and as well as your title. And then we'll go back to the question of, what was it like growing up? Who was your mentor? So I'll go ahead and start.
So I'm Doug, Chief Executive Kid at Kidizen. I was a hellion as a kid.
I'm Mary, and I'm the Chief Creative Kid at Kidizen. Not quite as bad as him, as a child.
DORI, GRAFF, Chief Marketing Kid, and I was very persistent as a child.
So it's a great combination. You've got a hellion, persistent, creative.
Creative, yes.
Creative. So it sounds like a really strong team. So when you guys come into a room, have the conversation of, okay, what are we going to accomplish today? It sounds like you can equally take the responsibility as a whole pie to do what you need to do, because you have, very unique and different traits that come into, which is always going to make a very successful company. So, Doug, when you were a young child, at what point did you find out that you were an entrepreneur, or someone told you that you're not following the rules here, you're making your own?
Yeah,
I won't tell that story.
No, this is good. We want to hear it.
The innocent version.
I don't know if I ever really knew the word entrepreneur for a very, very long time. I started working relatively young when I was 12 or 13, getting a paper route and then doing a lawn mowing business. And I was doing these series of jobs that were basically working for yourself, and later it was waiting tables, and it was starting little side businesses, but I didn't really know the word entrepreneur. I just enjoyed starting something because I could try to see if I could do it, right? And I wasn't necessarily even thinking about it being grand business, but I think part of it came down to liking control and also liking to create something and make something come to life. So and as a young kid, I don't know, I was just a kid that liked to ride bikes. Like summertime, it's like, hey, you want to go ride bikes and go explore? Like, that's just awesome.
That is awesome. So to expand on that, was there anyone that really inspired you when you were growing up? Did you have a mentor or a grandmother, or neighbor, or brother, someone that just you really looked up to?
Yeah, for sure. My aunt, actually, who was in film business early on, very creative person. She's currently on the New Mexico film board, and spent her career in advertising and then in film and bringing film to New Mexico, but always a very independent artist, and really nurtured and encouraged me in different pursuits that I took that were adventurous.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Mary, what about you?
I think it's interesting that Doug said I didn't really know about what an entrepreneur was growing up, and I don't know if we're dating ourselves, but it wasn't really a word that we knew. It was just how we lived. We just tried a lot of things. We played, 8 hours after school, and our parents didn't know where we were, and that was just fine. And that's how we learned. And so I grew up only child, which comes with a lot of stereotypes, but in my case, it's really formed who I am and why I'm creative, and the fact that I've just had a lot of space and freedom to, follow my imagination and discover things and solve problems. And so I think that's what drives me and who I am today. I spent a lot of time in nature trying to figure out, if the world is going to end tomorrow, what is the fort I'm going to build, and how, I was not your normal child, but those were the things that
It's a creative mind. That's a good thing. Definitely.
That was fun for me. And, I was part of the Future Problem Solvers of America Club. That was, instead of soccer, that was my path, so.
So who, looking back, was there a mentor or someone who really helped you look at life differently?
Yeah, I would thank my parents, honestly, for just letting me be me and really supporting my artistic endeavors and pursuits, as well as the teachers I had along the way, especially in high school and college. I always had one teacher who was just certain that I was going to do things, and would kind of take me under their wing. So I have a few teachers who I could absolutely say were mentors.
That's awesome. How about you?
Yeah, so I always remember I loved creating things as a kid. And as a teen, I started just making jewelry and then found that, other people want it, and sell it to them, So, started making and selling jewelry, and I did that actually for a few years, but really it was just, I loved creating things, and I think that that's what's always inspired me, and part of the reason why Mary and I got started in the first place was we just really wanted to create, we just wanted, no boundaries to create something that we felt the world might need, and not that the world needed more jewelry, I did it anyway. And then in terms of my inspiration, my dad has always been a huge part of my development in terms of my business life. We grew up in New Jersey, and he worked in New York City, and he commuted an hour and a half each way. He took the train to the subway, to the path to the subway, and so spent 3 hours, commuting and working like crazy. And so he always just instilled just the work ethic of you can, if you want it, you can do it, and you can work hard and make it happen.
Wow, you guys are a powerhouse. The creativity, the work ethic, the not to stop, to keep going. So it's interesting that you said that you came from New Jersey.
Mm-hmm.
Why did you move to Minnesota? Or I should say, why are you here?
Well, I went to school in Chicago.
Okay.
And then moved up here for my husband's job at the U, and have been here since '99, and just found it's a great place to live. Nice to raise kids.
So if it was 99, you shortly started.
Well, let's see. No, I did a bunch of different agencies for a while, and then met Mary in 2007-ish.
Okay.
Right? Wow. Yeah.
Okay, and then 2010 is when you guys started your company.
Yep.
Can everyone hear me okay back there? I want to make sure then. Move my voice to that direction. So I understand that the two of you had met and wanted to start up another company, or start your company. But Doug came along and you met here at Coco, is that correct? And how did that conversation go?
What?
Yeah, you and I, we met, it was like just one of those, through a friend, mutual friend, who just kind of sent us an email and said, oh, you two should meet, and it was just like, okay, fine, and when you're kind of in those early stages, you're just kind of doing coffee with random people all the time.
Right.
And I remember driving to the coffee meeting to meet Doug, and I was talking to Mary on the phone, and she's like, who are you meeting? I'm like, I don't know. She's like, why are you meeting him? I'm like, I don't know. So I showed up with kind of a bad attitude. But we just connected right away, just in terms of what drove us, what we were looking to do. He was, well, he can tell his own story, but he was exploring a few different startup ideas, but it was around resale, and we immediately just connected in terms of what drove us and what we were wanting to achieve. And the three of us were working together, Mary and I, on Kidizen, Kidizen at the time.
Right.
And he was working on his thing, but the three of us would get together, and then we're just like, you know what, we should just join forces. And, you know, we could be a powerhouse team. And I think that how the three of us met and how we work together has been a huge part of why we've been able to build what we've built. It's definitely, I would have not, you know, in the early stages, Mary and I, we've been through many lows, many failures, many times in which we maybe should have stopped, but just kept on going. And, you know, and then it's even the same with Doug, went through a lot of that as well. And I think that just the strength of the team and how we balance each other out and how the synergies there has really moved us forward.
So at what point did you go from Kidizen to Kidizen? What made you decide? So describe to our audience Kidizen, exactly what it is. And I could describe it, but I'd rather have you guys describe it.
Yeah, so Kidizen was started in 2010, and Mary and I were pregnant at the same time, had kids at the same time, and just, you know, dealing with the abundance of stuff in our lives and the transient nature of it, moving in and out. And we were kind of obsessed, and still are in many ways, just to the idea of sharing and how things move from one family to the next, and the economy around that, and how these things become a touch point in many ways. And those sort of connections make these things more valuable, actually, than what they actually are, and they're more interesting. And so Kidizen was a different approach to the same sort of thing, where we used QR code stickers. You could get a pack of stickers and put it onto an object, and then attach digital content, video, photo, text to an item, so that no matter where it went, all of that content went with it, and people could add to it, and so forth.
Okay.
And that we launched at the very beginnings of like the collaborative consumption movement was really happening. 2 books came out at the same time around collaborative consumption. We got to know the authors, and they brought us into the fold with the collaborative consumption business communities. You know, you know, whether it be ride share, bike share, or all of the different things that you share. We were, you know, doing speaking engagements and that sort of thing. And so it seemed really successful at the time, like with the initial launch, and we had great, passionate early adopters. But when it came back to really scaling the business, there's just too many barriers. This was not something that would scale to masses in terms of really truly solving a problem that people, you know, needed. And so we talked to all the different communities of people who were using Kidizen, because really what it was people brought together around shared interests of certain things in their lives, whether it be bikes or art or crafts or whatever. These communities were forming. And so we talked to them and said, you know, well, what do you need? What problems can we solve for you? And they're like, we need a marketplace that's for our specific vertical, that is just for us. It's not an eBay, and it's not all these other people. You know, it is our own thing. And it's like, okay, we can do that. And then we're like, okay, what vertical makes most sense? And we're like, well, we're parents, and we see the problem of, you know, the constant cycle through the things in our lives as our kids, you know, go through items and then needing to acquire more. The market size is huge, and the need is huge. And so we're like, all right, and we just put a prototype out that didn't even actually have a payment platform or anything. Like literally you listed something, and then the buyer would give you her PayPal email address, and they would invoice. You know, like it was very like rough and rudimentary, but we needed to test, like, okay, is there really, we needed to validate that there was a need for this. And we, you know, actually a lot of our users from 2013, when we put that out there, are still with us, and they're our like best, most passionate users. We hired one of them. You know, she's now our community manager, and you know, they just like loved it. They thought it was just like the best ever. So, and then we met Doug, and
Well, I need to stop you just for a quick
Yeah.
second, just because of the importance of putting something out there, not being perfect, not being satisfied with it, doesn't do everything that you wish it could do or wanted to do. Just get it out there. And I think there are two really strong components that you tapped into, which is the whole networking. You met with Doug for coffee. You didn't really want to go, but you went.
no, I didn't. No.
You didn't know why, but you did. So number one is, in order to be successful, you have to network. You have to get out there. Number two is you have to put your product out there.
Yeah.
You know, everyone hates to put an ugly baby out there. There is no ugly baby. My baby. It's your company, your products, your ideas, your everything that consumes your mind.
Yeah.
You're afraid that someone's going to think badly. But the successful thing is, you met with Doug, you met with a stranger, you had a conversation, you built a relationship, you had an idea, you put the ideas into action, you put it out there, and people were willing to give it a try and trust it, and work with you to improve it.
Yeah.
And look where it is today. So those were just two things I just really wanted to touch on real quick, but sorry for interrupting you.
No, I think you're absolutely right. Putting it like, and that's not in our nature to like put out something imperfect. I mean, we definitely have our perfectionist tendencies, and Mary, gosh, I mean, she's just like, you know, and it truly was an ugly baby. But I think what it did was it really endeared us to our early adopters, where, I mean, they felt like they were a part of what we were building, and still do today. And so it allowed us just to be able to kind of be one of them and really work very closely with them and, you know, develop this thing together.
Well, I think customers want to hear, want to be heard. I should rephrase that. The customer, I think, a lot of times today, we're constantly giving our products and saying, this is what it does. But to actually sit back and listen to what they want and then work together, it goes back to what's important to you guys as a community. This mobile community, this marketplace that you guys have created, it's only been successful because you sat back and listened to your customers. And so they're going to go through, you know, the highs and lows with you.
Oh, definitely.
And it's rewarding because you're making them look like the hero.
Yes. No, they very much knew that we were building this for them.
Yeah.
That is just awesome.
Hopefully they still know that it's a co-creation really with them. And we have a very active community on Facebook, and they tell us every day what they want.
Well, isn't there mommy days?
Well, Mommy
Oh, yeah,
Days is-
no.
Okay, so this is a young lady that has her own YouTube channel, I believe it is. And she just loves Kidizen and talks about Kidizen and just really, and I thought for sure she was an employee, and she's not. She just loves the product and loves what you guys are accomplishing. So to have people start marketing you and you're not even paying them, but you are putting your creativity to a good cause and they're supporting it, which is really awesome for a customer to constantly get back and you're not even asking. So
that's kind of what marketing is now, though.
yes.
That's what they say and what they think, and it's not what we are selling them.
Right, because that is a twist. It used to be the other way around where we never even heard the customer. It was just a website flag. Now, because you guys have created this marketplace, and for moms and dads to be able to follow other moms and dads, knowing that they have a child that is older than the child that you're putting clothes on, they can follow, and if there's new brands, I mean, I don't need to go into the details of the product, but Mary, do you want to talk a little bit about some of the successful things that have gone on from a creative standpoint?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, honestly, I think the most successful things are the ones the users have figured out for themselves, the user hacks. And for instance, we introduced hashtags, and all of a sudden, they're creating collections that are very much like Pinterest boards of, you know, listings and gallery posts and things that are under a certain theme. And then they share out those collections and other people follow them. And so we're realizing what they want through what they're doing with the tools that we provide them. And it's been really interesting, I think. Do you want to talk about bumping?
Bumping.
Because that's a new thing. That's
Yeah, yes. So bumping is basically sellers will collaborate with each other to bump each other's items to the top of the feed to gain exposure on those items to sell items. And what's great is that they're basically working together,
Yeah.
right? And they figured out that if someone comments on an item, we have a little bit of an algorithm around it, but it is involved with commenting on an item or favoriting an item a certain number of times will then move things to the top of the feed. So they figure that out.
Yeah.
And they have bump parties and they
Yeah.
collude together and
It's a
they work
huge thing.
together. And a bunch of other really interesting things like the hashtags where they're,
Yeah.
it's great when you have a software platform that you design to do one thing and then users are doing all these other things with it. That's a wonderful thing to happen.
Yeah.
And it's important to listen to that and see what's happening.
Is it hard sometimes, or has it been difficult when you created something to do this, but they were using it a different way? Did you want to go, whoa, wait a minute, you're supposed to use it this way? Or
I think
not?
it's a great thing, actually. I love seeing that. I mean, we know that not everything we put out is right, and you take risks and you take things down if they're not working. And if they're working in a different direction and they're telling you how it should work, that's awesome. That's gold. I would say.
So if you could give an entrepreneur advice, Dory?
I mean, so much of our story is all about persistence. I think, and I mentioned that before. For whatever reason, we always knew, even going from Kidizen to Kidizen, and mind you, it's been 7 years that all told that Mary and I have been doing this, and then met Doug in 2013. So that's, so another 4 years of your life spent on this as a kid. And, when we started off, we thought we had a surefire, this idea, oh my gosh, it is so needed and people love it, and that, as though that this was going to be some sort of instantaneous sort of thing. And that one didn't work, and we had a lot of failures along the way. And for whatever reason, we still, and yes, there are certain times in which you should give up, and we questioned them many times, is this the point at which we give up? But we, always felt but no, there's something here. There's something here that we really, we need to tap it and really need to take it all the way. And I don't know, had we not been able to have those conversations, and the three of us not have those conversations around whether, if I was doing it myself, I probably at some point would have talked myself out of it. So I think that that's been an important piece, but also just truly believing that, no, there is something here. We just need to approach it from different angles and not giving up. And so it hasn't been, it's been the most unglamorous road. Sad to say, but it's been super unglamorous, financially, personally, all of that. But still, I have the best job in the world. I wouldn't give it up for anything. And I love going to work every day, and I love what I do, and I wouldn't give it up.
Yeah, on the tail of that, it's, I think that there's a perception in this town that we're successful, but I would say that as recently as a year ago or less, we had those thoughts of, should we give it up? And so it is sticking to it and making some risky decisions along the way that, we are in a completely different place. We've done the 360. And you just don't know unless you continue to try. But I don't think you can continue to try unless you actually believe in what you're doing.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's at the heart of it. Everything. And if you're in it just to try and win, or just try and become a millionaire, that's not going to work out. But if you believe in your mission, your cause, and the purpose of everything behind what your product is, you just keep trying. And I would not only say keep trying, but really, really understand if you're solving a problem for your users, and yeah, make sure you're solving a problem.
What I would add to that is talk to as many people as you can. Whether that be finding a co-founder. I do think that having a co-founder is super important because it's really hard. Or talking to peers, to friends, talk to investors. We've talked to a lot of different people that helped us figure out the business side of it, right? And getting feedback, talk to obviously the customers. And so having conversations with a lot of people where there's a random person that you don't know how is going to help you and turn into a co-founder. And so having a lot of those conversations, as many conversations as possible. It's even basically the methodology that a program like Techstars is based off of, which is just like crammed in as conversations that happen very, very quickly to help you verbalize, like talking to a duck as a software engineer would do, and then you realize things and you get feedback. So I'd add that piece in.
So does anyone have any questions that they would like to ask? Any of them? Yes.
Great story, by the way. Love your product this one. And the question I have is, you talk about many challenges. You described some of the challenges that you faced, some of the hardest challenges where you thought, okay, I'm going to give up now because it's financial. I'm going to give up now because growth is stagnant. It's not, it's starting to plateau. We need to hit the next level.
Yeah, all that.
Yep.
Yes.
I mean,
Mostly financial.
Yeah.
I'd say it's been the hardest, the lowest lows, absolutely. But I think there have definitely been times in the product where we haven't felt like we found the right fit yet, product market fit. And that's equally as frustrating.
Yeah, where you put like so much into it and it doesn't take. So yeah, I mean, I would say that all of that. What low have we not gone? Yeah.
Running out of money, not being able to pay people, that's just,
Yeah,
Having to
That
let
sucks.
people go.
letting people go is
Yeah.
awful.
that sucks.
Which is good you fought through it. I'm sure your employees are happy right now.
It's basically just stubbornness and not quitting,
Yeah.
right? and knowing from metrics and in your heart that there's something there.
Yeah.
It might not be perfect yet, but then the perseverance to keep going to figure out what is working.
But I would also say, like, there's this stubbornness in terms of just, your persistence, but not being too stubborn around the idea that you're doing it the right way. You're doing this because there's a thread of something that, like, really makes sense. Like, people respond to it and there's something there. But, you do see, like, a lot of entrepreneurs, I feel like sometimes they're just so bullish on how they're doing it, that this is the right solution. That they
We're
put
guilty of
blinders
that
on.
all the time, right?
Every
We're just like,
day.
yeah, we've got this next feature
Yeah.
we're going to roll out. It's the silver bullet.
Oh yeah,
There are no silver bullets.
there are no silver bullets.
That is what we've learned. There are no silver bullets. And we have to assume, and I'm going to steal somebody else's quote, we just have to assume we're wrong.
Yeah.
And like, we just got to get it out there
Yeah.
to see how wrong we are, and hopefully we're partly right, and our users
Yeah.
will tell us.
Is there anything you've developed because the users wanted it and you thought, no, I'm not going to, but I did it anyway, and it actually worked? Or was there a specific thing that user wanted and you said, no way, we're not going to do it. We're just going to continue as this?
So many of
Like a
our
feature.
product decisions are driven by our users. You do get to the point where, they're telling you, we want this button here and we need this here, and like the very kind of like minute features. And you're like, God, but you don't, like, we have this bigger vision. This is going to be so amazing. And you don't know that you want this. So, don't worry about all this little stuff here. We got like plans. And they're like, yeah, no, I really, like, I don't need this. I really need that button right here. And so it's always like this dance that we do. We're like, every release, it's like, we tuck in those like things that we know that they want that button there. We're going to put that button there, and they're going to be super happy, And plus, we're also still building towards that bigger vision that they don't know that they want yet. We know,
They'll realize it.
Kind of guiding
Someday.
them like children, right?
Yeah, exactly. And so much of this is exactly like parenting.
Yeah,
It really is.
Which you're also all figuring out together, right?
Yeah,
As a new
yeah.
parent, you really don't know what you're doing.
Yeah,
And you're figuring it out along with other parents and your kids, and that's
Yeah.
what we're doing.
yes.
Yes.
Now that you're here, you're successful, you have the business. Now, we're looking back, and you're going to talk to your earlier self and give yourself some advice on what you might do differently or what advice you would give yourself, aka the rest of us. What might that be?
Don't quit your day job too early.
Yeah.
Advice number one.
Yeah, cash flow. That's a,
Surround yourself with people who know more than you do. Yeah.
yeah.
A partner is a great thing to have. Absolutely. I don't think that we would not be here, actually. I know that. Had we not been doing this together, and then the three of us, because when you hit those low lows, it's so helpful just to have that other person who's not quite as low as you are that day. Like, no, we can do this, and pull you back up. And just having different perspectives is just so critical to success.
Definitely, I would say being open though to those other perspectives as you're talking to other people. And it is this like balance, because you'll talk to investors or like advisor entrepreneurs who will like give you advice, and you're like, that's what I need to do, and then you're like, woo, and totally redirect. Whereas like there's just like, I feel like all of our good decisions have been like, okay, here's our core, and we're making these shifts that are kind of here. Meanwhile, like, there'll be an opportunity, like a big, partnership opportunity, or like somebody, some big investor tells us that, oh, if you just do this, then we'd be totally into it, and that would take you like here, and you're like, that's just not at our core, but it's tempting, so just like making those adjustments that are kind of more, I don't know, have words other than this. What do you mean?
I'd also say, like, we've really, really defined who we are and have kind of known what that looks like for years, and what our values are, and what our mission is, and just who we are as a brand. And we're not really, like Dori said, willing to go outside of that, because, we believe strategically that who we are is why people come to us. And so it's more than developing a product. It's more than having a lot of product initiatives. It's creating this entire experience in a brand, really. And that's what we've spent a lot of time, and we believe in that, and we understand that the product that we build plays within that.
So going through the ups and downs, and really relying on your core, because it is so important. When cash flow is kind of tough, and every entrepreneur goes through it, and you can never know when it's going to happen. It always happens at the worst time. But what are your thoughts on going for investment or seed? I mean, what are your thoughts on? You try to bootstrap all the way? I mean, tell us a little bit about, without getting personal, what are your thoughts when it comes to business?
A lot. I mean, every way is viable, right? It kind of depends on I guess it depends on the founder situation, the goals, the runway the founders might have themselves, and what they're trying to achieve. At the end of the day, the decision for us to raise equity dollars to grow the business was one of it would move faster. We figured out there was a business there, and there was something growing, and it was growing, but we wanted to grow faster, right? And we wanted to be able to continue to put all of us at 100 and whatever % in, plus be able to bring more people on. It was getting to the point where we just didn't have any financial resources to be able to do that. So it was like, okay, well, we could keep doing this thing, and we could then go back to bootstrapping it and working on part-time, working at night. And we had conversations about that, and our decision was to go and raise dollars, knowing that then sets in motion these series of events, which is, well, investors don't give you money because they're being nice, they want to return the investment. So it does sort of start this clock going, but it was a strategic decision on our part to do it because it would help us grow faster.
But the timing of that is also super important. I think, looking for investment dollars before too early, it is a full-time job. When we're fundraising, Doug is pretty much full-time on it, doing a ton of traveling, pitching everywhere, and it takes you away from building the product. So knowing that you're at the stage where you are desirable to investors, whether it be angel or a Series A or whatever it might be, making sure that where you're at with your product is in alignment with the type of dollars that you're going after. So, we started with friends and family, and that got us a little bit of runway. We were able to hire our first developer, and that got us to that point. But it's constantly just getting that enough money to get the runway that you need to get to that next stage. So had we had, $3 million in the beginning, that wouldn't have served us well. I don't think we would have spent it necessarily. We hadn't proven it out enough to know, when we raised our Series A, we knew exactly where that money was going, how we were going to spend it, and what it was going to get us.
And you figured that out because of what you went through before, or did you? Okay.
Yeah. So a year ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, we would, I don't think we were at that point where we would have been able to say, this is exactly what we need to do, and had it proven out.
Does anyone have any questions? Yes.
Yeah, kind of continuation on the previous theme. I'm very interested, congratulations on the Series A, by the way, that's great. On that so I'm hoping to tread that path fairly soon. So I've got maybe specifics if you get into just slightly on the process. Did you decide to go out as a thought of going out to Silicon Valley as a fundraise? I know funding locally is very challenging. Chicago was a result. Was that by happenstance, or are you checking out East or Midwest? What was that process for you guys on decisions on where to find the financing?
We've been talking to almost anyone who will listen for a while. Again, part of that is getting feedback, and early on, even before we were ready to be talking to Series A, B, C investors, they've been good conversations because they'll ask us questions we don't know the answer to, and then it makes you think about what they're asking, having looked at similar businesses. For our Series A, we were looking ideally for an investor that would help us strategically with the business, and would have some experience, right? That could help us, and could help us with networking and help us with the next round. And it's interesting, Chicago, we'd actually stayed away from Chicago for quite a while. We, up to our Series A, most of the dollars in the business were individual angels in Minneapolis and seed funds in Minneapolis. And I spent a lot of time on the coasts. The three of us would travel to the coast for trips. And we stayed away from Chicago because a business that was similar to ours in being a kids resale business that was a different model, had been in Chicago, and we're just trying to stay away from a lot of people who talk to that business. So we were a little surprised when we went to Chicago and met with a number of different VC firms there. And when we met at Origin, it was a love at first sight kind of meeting. It was great.
Was there the connections there? Were there warm intros, or was this cold emails for these?
No, it was a warm introduction through someone locally here. And there was one first meeting with an associate, and then the three of us went out to meet with the partners. We were originally scheduled to meet with, I think, maybe one or two of the partners. We ended up meeting with 3 out of the 5 partners, 4 actually. And it just was a great meeting that then started some further conversations.
And you mentioned 3 of you went out west. Was that unsuccessful financing, or you just decided that wasn't? I mean, what was?
How many times have you been? We traveled a lot. We've got some good stories and memories of driving around in a Fiat 500, being at one meeting and getting hard questions, and then figuring out answers to that.
Mary in
on
the back
next
seat
meeting.
on the laptop, like
Changing
like
our pitch deck.
like stuff like this.
Yeah,
Um,
good times.
I think we assumed that we needed to fundraise because we're B2C and Minneapolis just is just much more B2B and med tech and so forth. We were told many times like, yeah, people just, B2C, that's, you gotta go to the coast. So we just assumed that that's where the money was gonna come from. And then early on just started getting slowly local angel investors interested, and that kind of built upon itself, and they would talk to others, and we were like, oh, okay, well maybe there is interest here. And so we built upon that. But yeah, we spent a ton of time out in California.
And you could argue it was too much time and it wasn't the right time to be out there.
Mm-hmm.
But I would also argue that the conversations generally netted something interesting, right? It was rare that there wasn't something in a conversation, which I would argue happens anytime you're networking. Like, you're going to get something, or going to an event like this, right? There'll be a nugget somewhere. And there was a nugget in each one of those, and it was enough to make it worth it. Now, the 3 of us didn't always travel, and it was maybe me doing more of that until we got to the point where it made more sense. And then it turned out our Minneapolis community was very, very good to us and helped us build the business over the course of 3 years. And then contributed again in the Series A, and a lot of that was reinvestment from investors who had invested in the business and that we built relationships with. One of them was on the board for a while, and I think that was also just a testament to ongoing communication with investors, and I think it is important to continually keep your investors updated about the good things and the bad things of the business. And keeping them apprised of how it's going.
Can I pick back up that one? How many, you don't have to answer it, of course, but how many people did you visit before you finally landed your investment?
So we have
How many no's?
Yeah.
200-300
Wow. Okay.
in the list.
How long was that, like a year or?
Over the course of 3 years, I think my database of conversations I've had is easily in the 200 to 300 range. And some of those might have just been phone calls in terms of in-person meetings.
Great thing, though, the great PR right now, because a lot, those 300 know you now.
Well, and it is interesting that you close a Series A and then some emails come back in from some people that you've talked to in the past, and where suddenly more interesting. And it's always, flatter's nice. But it's also nice to have those relationships, and some of them have asked to be on an update that we'll send out quarterly or whatever, and we just never know when it's going to be a good fit. Just like with any relationship, really.
I'd say the investment landscape has changed quite a bit too, in that California, when we first started raising funds, they wouldn't even really consider us because we lived in Minnesota. And that's changed just a lot because, it doesn't matter as much anymore where you live to investors, and they're, I think, realizing the potential of the Midwest. And so I think a lot of our no's from California were in the earlier stages when that was more of the temperature of the scene.
I know that a lot of times when you take on investors, the dynamic can change for the company, for the vision, for day-to-day roles amongst founders. And I was wondering if you could maybe talk a little bit about, how did you navigate that, and what are some key takeaways that you advise younger startups?
Yeah, I think we're really lucky in that we have investors who actually believe in our vision and strategy and are here to add value to that. And we've had a couple board meetings with them since we closed our Series A, and they've been great. They've just been helpful, and they aren't here to tell us what to do. They're absolutely here to connect us to people to help us succeed. And so I think, I know that that's not the case for every startup, and so I do feel that we're very lucky. But I think it's also very important as a startup to seek those types of investors who are, who actually really believe in what you're going to do and want to be your partner.
I think it was interesting too for us having to figure that out, the value that our investors were going to provide. In the very beginning, in terms of the board was made up of the three of us, and there were no investors that were on the board. At that point in time, the relationships we had were with investors. I think mainly I had relationships with some who would provide feedback and guidance and get on a call, or they'd respond to an update. They were the ones that were responding, and they were engaging. We'd send out an update, they'd ask good questions, meet with them sometimes, they'd have really good feedback. So learning that, hey, here's this sounding board that's not in the core and the day-to-day of which we're in, which can provide this valuable feedback. And then after around in 2015, we then formalized a board structure, and Joy Lindsay came on the board, and that was our first board member. And it was, I think, an interesting learning experience for us to realize the value and how much guidance and strategic input this person who's invested in your business and is on the board of directors can help provide and help bring to us, and how strategically important it can be.
Yeah.
And it was all good. I mean, it was just all goodness, and that really helped set us up for, in a Series A, of having multiple members on the board and looking and knowing what we're going to look for more, looking for that strategic guidance and help, because we're all aligned in what we're doing. They are our partners, absolutely.
Yeah, I think we would forget sometimes that entailed, sharing some of our dirty laundry with them, versus like you get into the habit of, with investors, always showing like the pretty picture, like it's going great, that once they're on your board and once they're investing, they're on your side, and so you got to remember that. And so when you are struggling with some decisions, and you don't always have to paint the rosy picture.
Anyone else? Any questions? I see Eric Lopez is taking notes down there.
Well, there was actually got some questions that answered. That's probably what I'm most interested in is, I appreciate your low point kind of conversation. How long was your VC process? Was it, it sounds like it's been kind of
4 years.
Chronic. When did it get serious? Was it a year ago? When did you make the pitch? How many times did they say you suck? What was the standard goodbye?
Those are all good questions.
Yeah.
So now you're helping work out loud.
Yeah. So our path, Dori brought it up before, so our first round was, actually 2 rounds, was friends and family. And that got us to a point where we launched Kidizen as Kidizen and had a product and made that video. And then subsequent to that, we did a series of convertible notes, financings over the next 3 years. And they were anywhere from $300,000. I think the most we ever closed at one time was about $550,000.
Through private individuals?
Through, started with angels, and then moved into seed VCs, local, Matchstick Ventures, Sophia Fund, a lot of Go for Angels members. And we did that. We did a series of tranches of notes over several years. All along in there, we were also talking with Series A focused VC investors, typically either West Coast or East Coast, with the goal of raising more than $300,000 so that we could bring on more team at one time, so we could go after some of these initiatives that we're starting to get our brains around thinking would be the right way to go. So the process of closing the Series A, we really started in earnest on that in July of last year. Um, and we had a term sheet by October, and then the round closed in early March. And part of that timing in there between the October timeframe and March is you get Thanksgiving and you get the holidays, and things kind of slow down a little bit. So maybe, I think it probably would have gone a little faster than that, but I wouldn't say more than 60 days faster, maybe 30 days faster, 45 days faster if we hadn't had the holidays in there. Yeah.
Did you set the value, or did VC set the value for your Series A?
So Origin Ventures came to us, they delivered a term sheet to us after having gone through diligence, after having said, we're going to give you a term sheet. And then they went through some heavy diligence for a while, 30 days or so, delivered a term sheet, and then we had some conversations with them about that term sheet. They were open to some negotiation on that. So they basically gave us a valuation, and then we had some conversations on it.
Did your prior notes have a cap?
They did. Yep.
So jumping off of that, what's kind of the due diligence process like, kind of those 30 days that back and forth? What are they looking for? What do you could give them, audited statements, customer feedback? Like how do they get what they need?
Yeah.
They know
Lots-
everything about us.
Truth.
It's brutal.
Yeah, lots of numbers, lots of spreadsheets.
Yeah.
I mean, background checks.
Background checks. They're
call-
calling our customers, buying and selling on the platform. They're really digging in deep. And there were in our round there were five funds and a number of individuals. So everyone's kind of going through that individually. It was interesting, maybe not uncommon, that many would offer to share their notes. And I don't know to the extent that they actually shared them, but I got a lot of questions from everybody else individually. Everyone wants to do their own homework and really dive into the numbers.
I think that most investors, most VCs have their own methodology, their own formula to determine what makes a good business. For us, as a B2C company, as a marketplace, our CAC and our LTV were like probably the two most important things. So what is the lifetime value of our customer, and how much what is the cost to acquire that customer? And then you can extrapolate, okay, if I put X in, I'll get Y, and over what period of time. And then there's a lot of different ways in which you can go about getting a true LTV. And so I think it was just a lot of number crunching that would come down to those two basic concepts.
Yeah, and the other thing I would add is the belief in the value of what we're building and the community aspect of it was absolutely critical. And I think all of the investors who've invested in this business have believed that the team has learned something, and they believe in the team, and that they believe that there's a business there from the numbers standpoint, and a belief that there's a really interesting business because of the community of engaged users on the platform.
So it sounds like it was more than just the financial aspects, it was also
Yeah.
traction on
Yeah.
the product.
Yeah.
Traction, I think, is a big part of it. It's
Would you say
helpful.
that's even more so? But I have no idea what your revenues were, but I would say they probably,
You're gonna love churn too, right? How many users are constantly coming?
new users, it's they,
Right.
how they expand.
It's funny, we actually asked one of our investors this question in our last board meeting, and he said it was a combination of the growth, so being able to show that, along with not having big churn, right? Growth and retention.
You get more than 5 or 7%, they're not even look at.
So it basically means growth, not at the expense of the revenue in your business. You're not just buying new people in all the time, right? Because there are a lot of ways you can show growth with dollars behind a business to attract customers, but if they're not sticking around, then you don't really have a viable business.
What's the vision of Kidizen in the future? Where do you want it to go in the next 3 years?
3 years is an awfully short time. There are so many things that, Kidizen as a brand,
Yeah.
how much fun can we have?
So much fun. I think, it goes back to who's at the heart of our brand, which is moms, and really empowering moms to share not just what they have, but who they are. And so that's the brand we're building, and I think we're going to create the largest community of moms out there who are stylish, and they share, and they're social, and they are brand savvy, and that's a very attractive audience to brands and other companies. So
You're going global, or is it just US right now?
right now it's US, yeah.
Because in Sweden, they call them the cappuccino dads, so you can go to
Yeah.
Right.
I'd like to go to Sweden.
You?
Yeah, going international is a little tricky, but I think we can still dominate the United States.
We'll get there.
Yeah.
So because you've been successful on the highs and lows, at what point did you breathe? Like, oh my gosh.
I've been holding my breath this whole time right here.
Yeah. I have to say, and this is maybe like a downer, but I think we, because of like the highs and lows that we've been through, and feeling like getting like super excited, and then we started to protect ourselves against that and just kind of ride it a lot more, neutral, and so that we wouldn't, which meant we wouldn't feel the lows as bad, that wouldn't feel as bad, but it also meant the highs weren't as exciting for us. I think even once we closed the round, money in the bank.
And that was a great day. We went over to Dory's house, when we had
did.
dinner, we ordered
ordered
food in.
Of all people that day, we're like, we are going, we're stopping at the liquor store, and we're gonna go to my house, and he's like, yeah, I got a headache, he's like, I just need to sleep. I'm like, no. He rallied, but it was, there is we didn't feel that moment of, it was sort of elation, but it never, I don't know if it ever truly felt like real, and then we just moved right into
get new challenges. Once you reach your next goal, it comes with a whole new set of challenges, and
we're just getting started here. Really.
Yeah, I don't think we feel like we've completely succeeded yet.
We're not successful yet.
Yeah. Yeah, we've got a long ways to go.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, it's nice to hear, what you guys have been going through, and the changes and the people that you've met, and making a successful company with your focus on the core of your beliefs and your mission and what you're trying to solve and support and build up and listen. You have a very well-rounded package that I think a lot of entrepreneurs want to hear, because you don't know until you go through actions, but you're not going to go through those actions until the time goes by for you to experience it. So it's always nice to have people like you up here to share with everybody, because what's going to be exciting is next year we're going to look back at this moment, and you're going to have a whole set of successes and more challenges, but positive successes, because you're surrounding yourself with successful people and helping everybody. So I think that's why I think people lean towards positive people such as yourselves, because they love what you're doing and you're helping, and they want to help you. So I just really applaud you guys, and it's just an honor to have you guys here. But before we say goodbye, I just want to make sure, does anyone have any?
I have a question for Mary.
Yes.
So the world ends tomorrow. Is it the sofa cushion tent or the blanket tent that is the better tent?
I don't know. Because when you were a kid, you were building the tent
Oh,
for the end of
the
the world.
tent.
Oh, the fort.
Yeah.
Well, sofa cushion tent. Yeah, because sofas are the best. And actually, that's where I do all my work, on a sofa. So.
True.
Anyone else? No? Well, do you have any questions for any of us that you can think of?
I'm curious what everyone's biggest struggle is right now. Is there a common struggle? I know that for us it was financial. Is that the case, the most common case here, or is there something more than that? Yes.
I'd be a solo founder, so finding a technical co-founder locally
Yep.
was like impossible.
Yep.
So turn the question back,
Yep.
none of, well, two are, so how did you find a technical co-founder that wasn't just
Yeah,
paid?
we always thought we were supposed to find a third co-founder who was technical. And so when we met Doug, we were like,
Not UX background, but not writing code.
yeah. And, you know, at first I was just really, really hard. Everyone kept saying, oh, no, you it's just, you can't do it without a developer on your team. And we did bring someone on early that we thought would be a co-founder, who was a developer, and he helped us start Kidizen. But it wasn't the same, and I think in the end we played to our strengths and hired out the technical part, knowing that that was not what drove the success of Kidizen or Kidizen, really.
I just think for me, it's just getting something out there and testing it and seeing if it works. And here you guys did that. If they're ready to change the name of it as a citizen, it's getting me done. Okay, maybe we can do this and not have something that's perfect.
Yes. Oh,
Just
yeah.
do it.
That's great. That's so great. Testing is,
That really gives me kind of faith in it. Okay, maybe just get something out there and see really who would know what, who would respond, what people respond to.
that's awesome. That's good. Talk to people, and yeah, I love that you're doing that. That's great.
I myself am about to launch.
Oh, good.
I was in San Francisco, just moved here, and I'm hoping Minneapolis will work good.
Wow.
Minneapolis is great.
I
Yeah.
hope so. Because I was in San Francisco and there was some traction where people were already getting interested.
Yep.
And I didn't want to because then I wanted to come home for family reasons. So I'm hoping that, you know, this is going to be the great city of the Twin Cities, you know. That's, like you said, you know, this is where original people from Silicon Valley started out, you know, a couple of the
Yeah.
big ones.
Well, it's all about networking.
Yeah.
You know, constantly those accidental collisions that create ideas and partnerships.
Yep.
And it will expand on your ideas. And that's the reason why I wanted to be the director for Startup Grind in Minneapolis, is to help showcase companies such as yours. And because you guys are so busy doing your work and raising funds, a lot of times it's nice to have people like you up here so people in the audience can ask those questions and help grow their businesses. And decisions hopefully are being made based on the successes, which is helpful, I think, especially, I mean, for me and I know others in the audience. But I don't want to cut it off. I don't want to stop talking with you guys. Does anyone else have any more questions? I definitely want to be respectful. Yes?
You talked about finding your vertical. That's one of my problems too. My product is a very broad audience. So did you do all the math and the numbers win, or did you check your heartstrings and see which ones of those won? What was your process?
A little bit of both, quite honestly. I think we actually thought we were going to start broad. When we figured out that we were going to do a parent marketplace, we thought, well, there's all sorts of stuff. There's baby strollers, and there's, you know, high chairs and nursery gear and all sorts of things. And then we realized that, you know, there are barriers that come with going broad. And in order to really focus and understand our user, we went narrow and we focused on more of the style. We knew it was easily shippable. Moms were already doing it, shipping clothes to other moms and setting up their own closets on Instagram and Facebook. And so I think when you can start narrow, that is also based on your heartstrings, that's an excellent place to start, because you can always go broad if you've got something that's working.
Yeah. I think it's easy as an entrepreneur to, you know, think, well, wow, this idea, it can solve so many problems. It can do so much for so many different people. And it probably can. But so keeping those blinders so that you're really focused on, but I'm going to solve this one problem for this group of people, and I'm going to do it really, really, really well, and then those other things can come later. But it is hard, because you kind of want to do it all.
Yeah, I think in the fundraising process, we got that question a lot, like, well, are you going to scale to other verticals? You can be a social marketplace for all sorts of things. And that's the one thing we've been like, nope, we're not. You know, maybe in 5-10 years, we'll, you know, reconsider that. But the market of kid stuff, or kid style even, is enormous.
Yeah.
And even thinking about that narrow market, figure out how to make that like a very big opportunity. It doesn't have to be adding other things in to make it big. Otherwise, maybe it's not the right thing to focus on.
So is it narrow focus kind of the stylish mom sort of your way of also differentiating yourself in the marketplace, in the competitive landscape?
Yes.
And how you kind of stay fresh when, Facebook rolls out marketplace and
Yeah.
maybe there's other apps that do similar things and there's like Letgo and these other ones that
Yep.
just sell their stuff in
Right.
general.
Because they're very broad. And
Yeah.
so we're building a community of stylish moms. And we think sticky about what we're doing is that, we can segment our users and really get to know who they are. We're building a large audience of the most desirable customer for brands and for retailers. And so that's the business desire, I would say, but, sorry, I lost track of where I was going.
I mean, there's still so much opportunity, even within that narrow focus. Our penetration is still, so low. Like there's still so much more opportunity, whether it be just getting more of the same type of users because are aware, like there's so many people who still don't know who we are, or whether it be, scaling, just even opening it up to Canada, and then we could go in, so we could scale it that way. We could broaden it in terms of the type of product or the type of user, but right now, we do what we do really, really well for that specific type of user, and that's why our engagement is so high and our retention is so high. And knowing that there's still so much more opportunity within that, we don't even need to think about going broader at this point. I mean, that opportunity exists, maybe, but I mean, that's for down the road.
I think both those questions are trying to, how do you figure out where to focus, right? Part of it is you have to go with your gut.
Mm-hmm.
Part of it is trying to look at the market landscape, and then you just got to pick something and ship it, really. You might be wrong.
And totally get the focus, I guess also differentiating, like,
Yeah.
are there other apps that are really laser focused on kids, like, and how do you differentiate between them? If there are, I don't know the landscape.
Yeah, I mean, we had one competitor that was really just like us, but they went under, and they had actually expanded their verticals and added women's and men's, and then they went under. And then another company bought them, Poshmark, and so Poshmark sells kids' clothing, and it's peer-to-peer, it's women to women, but it's not just moms. And so the feedback we've heard is that moms want to come to Kidizen because they don't feel comfortable on an app that's just, that's for any woman. And so we know that we have something special in bringing moms together because it's a different type of user than just a woman.
So when you were doing kind of the brand work before you went from Kidizen to Kidizen, you needed to do, or when did you do that brand work? So you know what the brand kind of what the values are, all those things. When did you kind of hone in on that so that when these other, digressions or other ideas in place, you can go back to the brand work and say, this is who we are, and those things that fall into the framework of what our brand is.
Yeah, I mean, it's been an ongoing process, I think, as we realize more about who we are and where we're playing. I will say some of those things change. The things that haven't changed are the ones that come from why we're doing this, which is our mission and our brand values. And it does come back to believing in empowering moms and believing in expressing your own style as a mom and all of the things that I think you can see in our brand today. I don't know when we started that. I guess at the beginning.
I think it's something that has always been there and evolved. We have our brand deck that Mary's always adding to, and all of it has evolved over time. There was no one point in time which we focused just on that and rolled that out,
Right.
you know, in exclusion of working on other stuff.
This is ongoing, and actually it's continuing to build because we just brought on an editorial director, and now she's bringing in our brand tone and voice, which is something the three of us could not have done because we're not writers, and so it's adding to our brand, really. And then, you know, bringing in our guardrails, which are the things that we know we're not, you know, so it's a process.
Sorry.
No, this is good.
So your parents, can you talk to raising a family, starting a business, how that all mixes together? Do you think that some of that might have played a role in maybe not getting invested early on because you didn't fit that stereotype of 20-year-old post-college kid who can act all day long,
Yeah.
all night long? And you know, just was it a struggle or how that fit in, I guess?
I think it definitely was. We did, you know, I think that investors do look for a certain pattern as they look to mitigate risk. They do so by, you know, knowing what has worked for them in the past and trying to follow some of those same patterns. We definitely don't fit that pattern. And so that was a bit of a struggle. I think it also, and it took, you know, we always believed that, you know, because of our differences, we bring a much different perspective to starting a business, and our approach to the marketplace is very different than 20-year-old dudes in their, you know, mom's basement coding. And then, you know, so in many ways it ended up being an asset, but yes, you're absolutely right. It is a struggle and not something that is seen right off the bat. I think that our investors, in the end, one of the reasons why they invested in us is because how well we knew our user. Like, we lived it and breathed it and like knew them inside and out, more so than, you know, anybody else could. And then in terms of being parents and doing this, I mean, yeah, I mean, that's super hard. I think that the one thing about running your own business, and, you know, we came from the agency world where it's a much more structured day, and that was really hard as a parent. Like, you know, I might not be, you know, like here I am at work and it's 3, and I'm not super productive because I'm thinking about this other stuff that I need to be doing at home. And, you know, now we can structure our day to maximize it in a way where, like, you know, 3 o'clock, I need to be at my son's baseball game, and that's where I'm going to be of my most value, right? And that might mean that then at 8 o'clock tonight, I'm going to work on this other stuff. But being able to flex your day in a way that your output is for, you know, whether it's work or family, is fully maximized, given what you have going on, and having that flexibility has, I think, changed our worlds in many ways.
That's actually how we tell our employees to live their lives at work, and you know, we want them to have that same family balance. And so we're just very family friendly. If somebody has to take their kid to a doctor's appointment, then they should do that. If they need to stay at home for some reason, then they should do that. We're not, you know, I think it just produces better work if you can have that balance in your life.
Any more questions? Okay, well, I think that is the end. And just again, really appreciate what you've shared with us. And I hope I'm talking loud enough. It's just been really important, I think, for people in Minneapolis, entrepreneurs, men, women, all different ages, different ethnic backgrounds, you know, all coming together and being able to just talk about what's really important, which is solving a problem and creating a really nice community of entrepreneurs. So thank you very much for coming.
Thanks,
Really
Lonnie.
appreciate it.
Thanks, everybody.